part of your day with us. We're excited to walk you through how digital asset investing works inside a self-directed IRA and give you a clear look at ETZ, which is one of the platforms that are currently available for our clients. My name's Siobhan, and I'm just going to go through some housekeeping before we get started. To let you know, firstly, this session is being recorded, and we're going to send a replay to everyone that's in attendance today. So if you miss anything and want to revisit anything later, you'll have the recording. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to put it in the chat, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. We will keep an eye on those throughout the call and answer as many as we can toward the end. And for anything account specific, we may be following up after the webinar. And a quick disclaimer before we get started, everything in today's session is for educational purposes only. It is not tax, legal, or financial advice. MidAtlantic IRA is a passive administrator, and we do not recommend or endorse investments. Always be sure to consult with your own advisors before making decisions with your retirement. And today I have Jack Kiley with me and Seth Bergito with me. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and get started. So with that, I will hand it off to Jack.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning or afternoon, wherever you may be. And as I've had conversations, I think, with many of you regarding crypto over the years, and I think it's fair to say until recently, at least regulatorily for us, we've been dissuaded from encouraging clients or having clients, encourage isn't the right word, but have clients utilizing retirement accounts to invest in crypto. It's been a rather hard thing to do over the past several years. I think it's fair to say there's a new climate around crypto, both at the SEC and Treasury. And I think what we've found in ETZ is a relatively, quite frankly, what I think is a relatively easy way to invest in crypto if that's your one of your investments of choice. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth to tell you a little more about who he is, and then also I think he's going to walk us through a little bit of history and what have you, and then get into crypto. Seth.
Yeah, thank you, Jack, for having me on. It's a great honor and pleasure to present to MidAtlantic IRA and its clients. My name is Seth Bergita. I'm a Nevada-based trust officer, and I've worked for over a decade in the self-directed IRA industry, providing custody and administrative services for alternative assets. The first 5 years has been a focus on traditional alternatives such as real estate, private equity, private lending. And then the last 5 years, as client demand has grown towards crypto, my focus has really been in the crypto space and how it can work with self-directed IRAs. And you'll see, we'll touch on, throughout this webinar, we'll touch on why IRAs are really primed for the crypto investment ecosystem. And about ETZ Soft, we're a San Francisco-based tech firm with an SEC-registered RIA and approximately $5 billion in assets under management. We're powered by Coinbase, and we provide a simple solution for self-directed IRA clients to invest in crypto with no need for checkbook control, no need for key management, and you'll see how that all works throughout the webinar. I'm not here as an advisor nor to promote crypto investments. My goal is simply to provide a high-level overview of crypto and blockchain, describe how to access these markets in your self-directed IRA, and then address any live questions and some frequently asked questions that I get from clients. You can always contact us with additional questions. You'll see my email there, but you could submit a form on our site or email support@etzsoft.com. Jumping right into it, the concept of Bitcoin and blockchain technology emerged around 15 years ago and started gaining popularity. It began as a simple idea, essentially a digital currency built on an immutable public ledger, and it ultimately redefined how trust and value can move across the internet. It then began to scale and develop the ability for the currency to be smart, meaning the currency wasn't only a means of exchanging value, but also programmable agreements and contracts can be put into these types of transactions. And then eventually came interoperability, which means that different systems were now able to talk with each other. And it led to real use cases and global investment demand, and ultimately the legitimacy by Wall Street when they launched their ETFs in 2024. So that's just a basic history background. In terms of what Bitcoin is and its significance to the world, many view it as really transformative as the invention of the internet. Right? History has proven that society transforms and adopts new and optimal ways of transacting, both formal, non-formal, financial. But we're all familiar with the move from paper to web, right? People began communicating over email as opposed to physical letters. Medical files moved from paper form to digital form. And so there has been a progression with how communication has evolved over time. If you think about the internet, there's been transformation within. Right, web pages back in the 80s used to just be static and read only. That was known as Web 1. And then it moved to Web 2, which we're very familiar with, right? We can interact with web pages. We can log into our bank account and set up automatic payments or queue up a wire. We can go on eBay and transact in online marketplaces or go with StubHub and buy football tickets. Right, so the internet has moved from a static stage to an interactive stage, and that was Web 2. The next growing advancement in internet technology is the way we transact online, known as blockchain, and that's called Web 3. Blockchain really addresses the need to bridge all the different forms of communicating and transacting online. For example, real estate transactions are registered on paper with the county clerk. Bank wires run through the Fed. Escrow agreements are internal documents in a DocuSign folder. And so we see that communication has evolved, but it's still very fragmented in terms of how it can all be connected, which makes different types of processes cumbersome, costly, and lengthy. The way I like to describe just the significance of blockchain is with an example using Zelle. So prior to 2017, if you wanted to send money, you hired a contractor, a plumber, and you had to pay them. So you had the option of writing a check. Obviously, there was the cash option, but if you weren't going to use cash, you could write a check. You could queue up a wire, set up an ACH. But obviously, that meant going through the banks, dealing with the bank schedule. So no payments on weekends, only open when the feds are open, and obviously a delay in settlement. And then a bunch of banks got together and said, why do we need the Fed to be open for us to exchange money? Why don't we create a group? We'll each deposit some cash. For example, we'll each deposit $100 into a pot. And if a client at Capital One wants to pay an account holder at Wells Fargo, we'll just make a ledger switch internally. Simple as an Excel sheet. And that was a revolutionary idea where banks said we can create our own ecosystem to operate transactions and settle in real time outside of the normal and more legacy means of transactions. Now, Zelle doesn't use blockchain, and Zelle is essentially an internal ledger, but that's an example of how different systems of really bringing together fragmented parts of a transaction experience can really elevate the way the world transacts. And think about it, in the past 8 years, Zelle has become really the way that everyone pays each other, and we can't imagine living a world without it. So that's a parable to where blockchain is taking us. And we've reached a point where governments and major institutions have begun adopting blockchain technology in order to drive efficiency and scale. Recently, the California DMV announced that they are using the Avalanche blockchain to digitize 42 million car titles and make transfer of those titles run on blockchain rails. Major banks like Citi and Chase launched projects to enable 24/7 international payments powered by the Ethereum network. And we have Wall Street firms such as BlackRock and Franklin Templeton that are using the Ripple network to move traditional assets offerings onto blockchain. So they're essentially breaking away from legacy Wall Street brokerage processes, which normally require clearing firms and transfer agents, and they're bringing it all onto this new ecosystem of how the world can transact. And all in all, its effectiveness has really captured the attention of investors globally. And in just a short time, the crypto industry's market cap, which is led primarily by Bitcoin, has grown to approximately $4 trillion and places it amongst the top 10 global assets by market value. And if you compare that to gold, which is a globally recognized store of value that has endured for thousands of years and holds the number one spot by market cap at 26 trillion, it's pretty amazing to see that in just 15 years, the crypto has grown to nearly 15% of gold's market cap, which is an extraordinary achievement and really underscores the speed and scale of adoption in this new digital asset class. Let's go to the next slide. We discussed how blockchain bridges inefficiencies in today's fragmented system of communication and transactions. I wanted to provide two examples of where real world asset use cases that we take for granted but are currently being brought into blockchain ecosystems because of the efficiency it provides. If you think about taking out a loan against your property, the process involves pretty complex and multiple intermediaries, which really all add time and closing costs. For example, lenders will price in the risk of a lengthy foreclosure process, as well as the cost for legal safeguards. We have title companies and attorneys that charge fees to verify ownership, and they look into whether there are any other liens or encumbrances on the property. There's administrative overhead, as loan processing, documentation, and servicing all piles up. Now, all of these steps are necessary in today's system, but they underscore how much friction really exists in traditional financial transactions. These are the very inefficiencies that blockchain was really designed to solve. So, for example, blockchain and tokenization really can bridge all these critical steps. And they put it all together in a trustworthy, transparent, and administratively efficient way. So, for example, the title of a property instead of being represented on paper at the county clerk, can be represented as a digitized token at the county clerk. And smart contracts, which govern any liens or borrowing terms against that asset, are all public and available on the blockchain. These coded contracts outline the terms, the payment schedules, the default provisions, and it's all encoded and executed automatically through this blockchain technology. All this with basically enables no need for additional trusted third parties, and everything is basically recorded and immutable on a public ledger. The other example, which I'm familiar with on a personal note, is asset classes like gold coming onto blockchain. Right? For as long as anyone can remember, gold has been a trusted store of value and has appreciated historically over time. However, there's been no simple way to earn yield on your gold holdings. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Right? You hold your gold at a depository. How can you work with that without working with a number of intermediaries to try to earn some type of yield off of it? And there's a current project underway involving one of the largest U.S. gold depository trust companies, where investors holding gold can lend their assets for interest or lock them up for collateral, really creating opportunities to bear yield on their asset holdings, and those systems are all powered by blockchain. And it brings us to the next slide of what are the investment opportunities and why do it through an IRA? So in general, crypto ownership has evolved beyond pure speculation. It's now viewed as both a store of value and a source of utility, meaning that holding those coins is actually what powers the very blockchain networks it represents. You have investors and asset managers that recognize its role in a balanced portfolio, as digital assets are really becoming a more legitimate component of modern wealth management. You have investors looking beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are the two big names in crypto, and they're looking at tokens that really power the leading layer one protocols. That includes protocols like Solana, Cardano, Avalanche, Ripple, Aptos, many of those names that you might be familiar with and have heard. But these are all the protocols which are really shaping the future of decentralized finance. And beyond price appreciation, many of these assets offer yield-bearing opportunities through processes called staking, there's lending, there's mining, there's treasury-based strategies. Staking and mining refer to earning through powering the blockchain that runs those tokens. So those are, that's a high level of what you can use to discuss with your advisor or do more research into how you would want to invest into different crypto opportunities. Now I wanted to discuss what the advantages are of going into this type of asset class within your IRA. So the well-known advantage is obviously the tax-deferred or tax-free growth of these assets, depending on whether you're traditional or Roth funds. And crypto is in its infancy, even though it's been talked about for so long. It's relatively in its infancy stages and is projected to grow exponentially over the next few decades, which really brings us to the second point, that IRAs are really built as long-term capital instruments where you're investing for maybe 30, 40, 50 years down the line. And it really connects us to the last point of the crypto markets are, because they're in their infancy and they're still gaining liquidity from all the institutional markets, they are much more volatile than other standard traditional assets. And because IRAs are built for the long term, they have the ability to withstand volatility. So these are three main reasons why the crypto markets have captured the attention of the retirement place industry. Which really brings us to the million-dollar question of how can I, in the retirement space, access these types of markets in my IRA? So I'm going to go through three options and what their limitations are. So we all know national exchanges, let's say like Coinbase, Kraken, Crypto.com. They are really built for individual and entity accounts and do not cater to IRA or solo 401k account holders. Which really brings us to the second point, which has gained some popularity, which is checkbook control. And many self-directed IRA account holders will set up checkbook control, allowing their IRA to participate on national exchanges as an entity. Checkbook control involves creating an LLC or a trust, which obviously means you're going to be incurring additional legal services, fees, as well as adding additional layer of complexity. And it's an option, but it leads to a significantly higher barrier to entry. As well, there's regulatory concern around clients who have checkbook control and go ahead and self-custody their crypto assets in their IRA. The other option is the ability to invest in ETFs. So we mentioned how in 2024, Wall Street really adopted Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, which you can access in your traditional brokerage accounts, let's say at Fidelity or Schwab. But they come with significant limitations. Obviously, you're subject to Wall Street trading hours and T+1 settlement. You're also subject to the management fees of those ETFs. And pretty significantly, any yield-bearing opportunities really belongs to the asset managers. So BlackRock, IBIT, anyone that's managing these ETFs are leveraging the fact that you're buying into it for their ability to earn yield. And the yield-bearing opportunities do not belong with you. So it's an option. You're only obviously limited to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but what about if you want to go beyond? And that brings us to where ETZ Soft comes in. So ETZ Soft enables clients with MidAtlantic that have a self-directed IRA to trade and custody their crypto investments with Coinbase Prime. That means you'll have 24/7 trading of the top 60 coins and institutional grade custody with Coinbase's New York Trust Company. There's no need for checkbook control. There's no need to manage keys. And it's really as simple as you open the account, which we title to your MidAtlantic IRA. Stage 2 is you fund your account by completing MidAtlantic's bi-direction letter. And stage 3 is invest. MidAtlantic wires the funds to your account, and you'll be able to trade same day. It's all baked into Coinbase's liquidity, which has the best liquidity in the US, and therefore the best pricing. And I'll address it later in the FAQs, but the only fees that you're looking at on ETZ's end is 0.9% per trade and 0.4% annual assets under custody. And I'm going to take you to the next slide, which is screenshots of what the app looks like. So you'll have some familiarity with it, but you'll see it's very self-explanatory and easy to walk through. Essentially, when you download the app, you'll be prompted to create an account where you will select MidAtlantic as your self-directed IRA custodian. You'll input what account type you have and the account number you have with MidAtlantic. And then it will run you through a standard KYC process where you'll input your name, your PII, you'll be asked to upload a photo ID. And then, simple as that, your account is set up and you're taken to your home screen dashboard. The dashboard, obviously, to start, will show zero balance, but when you click on your profile, you'll see instructions on how to deposit funds from your MidAtlantic IRA. You'll also see instructions on how to withdraw funds back to your MidAtlantic IRA. You'll see any documents related. That includes account opening, account statements, IRS tax forms. You'll see that all included in your account profile. But it's really straightforward, very self-explanatory, and very simple to operate. And that's really what it's built for. There are clients who are going to want the higher levels of complexity with Checkbook. There are clients who are going to want the lower level of complexity with, let's say, just the ETF exposure. And this really services the middle of clients who want to have more direct buying power through Coinbase, but not have to hassle with managing keys, managing a separate entity. And it's all just contained in a trading app. And obviously, it's all owned by your MidAtlantic IRA. I put a list of FAQs together, and I'm happy if anyone else has questions they would want to discuss. But essentially, realize that there are no account opening fees or account minimums. So you can test the experience if you want to start with $100 and see how that fits into your investment model. You can do that, and we also cater to all different account types. So whether it's traditional, Roth, SEP, simple, technically solo 401ks, HSAs, ESAs, we have the ability to cater to any type of account you have with MidAtlantic. The way it works is ETZ is plugged into Coinbase Prime for all trading and custody. And you'll do your research, but you'll see that Coinbase is the gold standard for institutional custody. And it comes with $340 million of insurance. And we work with their institutional level, which is called Coinbase Prime, powered by their New York Trust Company. The fees on ETZ's end we addressed earlier. It's 0.9% per trade and 0.4% annual assets under custody, which means every $1,000 of assets is a $4 annual fee. We don't set any markups to the Coinbase listed price, and Coinbase, obviously, with the most liquidity, never has any slippage, which is a term in the crypto space of the difference between the listed price and the execution price. You can have multiple accounts on ETZ. So if you at MidAtlantic have a traditional and a Roth, both of those account types can be under one profile, and you can swap. You'll see at the top of the screen, you'll be able to switch whether you're in your Roth or your traditional to trade. And we also support in-kind Roth conversions, which we would coordinate with MidAtlantic on. The IRS only allows USD cash, essentially, to be contributed to a retirement account. So you cannot transfer any current personal crypto holdings into your IRA. There are yield-bearing opportunities with crypto holdings such as staking and DeFi, which we are rolling out currently through Coinbase. And it's not available at the moment, but our target is to have them all rolled out in 2026. One thing to realize is that ETZ will only send client withdrawal requests in cash back to MidAtlantic. We will not accommodate in-kind withdrawals as part of our security protocol. So essentially view us as a closed loop secure system, where if you set up an account, we will only take cash from your MidAtlantic IRA, and we will only send cash back to your MidAtlantic IRA. Otherwise, all your asset holdings are locked and stored essentially at Coinbase custody. That's for really everyone's security all around. In general, if you're newer to crypto, Obviously, the big names are Bitcoin and Ethereum, but if you want to do additional research, you'd want to start looking at what's called layer one protocols, which popular names are Solana, Avalanche, Cardano, and XRP. And then you could also start looking at layer two protocols, which are essentially built upon layer one foundations. Those names, popular names are Matic and Chainlink. But those are really, I'd want you to be doing your own research. And, it's, we addressed earlier that, the internet is significant, right? But that doesn't mean that you want to go and invest in every single type of web company, right? We had the dot-com bubble that burst, right? Data is important. That doesn't necessarily mean you go and invest in Oracle, right? So blockchain is important, and it's revolutionizing how the world is working. But you'd want to do research, find what protocols are being actually used currently, speak with advisors, and ETZ is really the bridge to enable you to invest on Coinbase.
Oh.
So Jack, that's the presentation in general.
Okay. Well, I think it gives people a lot to think about. The couple things I would like to reiterate. First of all, the only way that the account gets funded is through MidAtlantic. So that protocol is to you can set up the account independently with ETZ. They will send a notice back to us, and by that time you have probably completed the bi-direction letter that says send X number of dollars over to the platform, which we will do, and then you're trading as independently. When you look at your holdings through MidAtlantic, simply what you're going to see is the value of what's occurring in your account. We're not going to show the breakdown of if you own Bitcoin and Ethereum and 12 other things. It's just going to be in the aggregate because you'll have access to that through ETZ. And then, of course, when funds are dispersed, they come back to your account here. So, and again, as Seth said, and I just want to emphasize, that's for your protection, and so that we can do the proper accounting, if you will, for IRS and for tax purposes. And I think with that, if anybody has a direct question to Seth, I think now would be a good time to entertain it. So either put it in the chat, or Siobhan, if you have access to people there.
And even after the webinar, any questions could be emailed to me personally, Seth@etzsoft.com, or to our support channel, or submitted as a contact form on our site.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I personally went out and I set up an account. It's really an easy process. And my understanding, Seth, is that it's just right now it's just a mobile app, correct?
Right. Desktop is going to be launching soon. For right
Okay.
now, you would just download the app either on your iOS app store, so that's Apple, or through Google Play, and then
Yep.
start the account application.
Right. Okay. First question that somebody posted here is: Are there minimum? Are there required minimums at MidAtlantic? No, we don't. If you want to, although it wouldn't really be efficient, if you wanted to fund with $50, you could certainly do that. We're not. Our position is always, your investments are your investments. We don't get into minimums and those sorts of things.
Right. And then from MidAtlantic, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but from MidAtlantic's perspective, this would be the same way a client could invest in lending money to their cousin. This would just be another asset class where they're investing money on ETZ.
Yeah.
But any other MidAtlantic requirements of having a minimum cash balance at MidAtlantic would still need to be
Observed.
required.
Yeah. Right. Anybody else?
I think that might be it.
Okay, but as questions come, feel free to reach out. But yeah, as Jack said, it's a very straightforward process and really just makes the whole crypto within an IRA investing much smoother than has been experienced until now.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that would come up is how long does this process take? And my account was set up within I think 20 minutes max. It's an application process. It's pretty much name, rank, serial number. The only there is some personal data that's asked. Your social security number. You have to decide whether that's something you want to enter, those sorts of things. But it's as if you set up an account at any at Schwab or Fidelity or anywhere else. It's quite frankly the process is very similar and seamless. And again,
Right.
I had an answer back in less than but I was done all told 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes.
And
So,
then,
yep.
right, those PII requirements, those, for the social and the ID upload, those are all Coinbase requirements, right? Because
Yeah.
the crypto, we want to do everything right, working with the U.S. regulated institutions, and this is how everything is kept above board.
Right. Yep. Actually, Alan said it took him 10 minutes. He set one up. And as soon as your account is set up, we do through MidAtlantic, we are notified by ETZ that there's an account set up. And then what we'll have to do is marry up, if you will, those notices along with the buy directions. So if we are not going to fund an account without a buy direction. So if we get notice that an account has been set up, your next move with us should be to get with our acquisition team, make sure that buy direction is completed so that we can expeditiously fund your account at ETZ. Okay.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for joining.
Anybody else? This is your last bite at the apple here.
If questions do come up after,
Either way, it's been great
feel free to reach
presenting,
out.
and yeah, I'm sure that there will be questions that come up post, and please feel free to reach out.
Well, I appreciate your time. I think it was a very good presentation. Good. I always like history, so I gotta. I always like to see where things come from and those sorts of things. I think the platform again, I think is super easy. If you guys have other questions, don't hesitate to either send them back to us. As Seth said, he's graciously allowed or given you guys access to him to help set up accounts and what have you. And we do monthly presentations at MidAtlantic, and sometime maybe through the year we'll have you on, and we'll by that time we'll have more feedback and those sorts of things, and get into some nitty gritty. So I really appreciate your time, and with that I will sign off. If you guys need anything, we're always here. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Everyone.